this ravaged body, hello. How are we doing? Welcome back to the developer sessions here at EGX Rezzed. I'm very excited to introduce this next session because Warhammer The End Times Vermintide was, even though I can't say it right, my favorite game of last year. So please, without any further ado, welcome Liam O'Neill, Associate Producer from Fat Shark Games.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hope you're all having a great res. It's really good to be here and talk about Vermintide. So first things first, can we show hands how many have played Vermintide in the audience today? Wow. Okay, pretty much everyone. That's awesome. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll know kind of a little bit more about the development of the game and where we're bringing it for the future. So we'll start off with a brief introduction, kind of who I am, who Fat Shark is, where we started off, and what we're doing today. We'll talk about the development of Vermintide, and we'll start getting into things like how the release went, and later on we'll talk about what we've been up to since release and the future for the game. This talk does feature an exclusive announcement for the future of the game, so we'll be showing something off for you guys here that we haven't shown anyone else outside the office so far, and 2 potentially funny stories. These are stories about some of the most embarrassing bugs in the game, so hopefully you'll enjoy laughing at the shame. I am Liam O'Neill. My name is Liam O'Neill. Don't know what happened. Associate producer at Fat Shark. I've been with the company since 2012, and I am primarily responsible for our releases, for our quality assurance team, and for doing marketing events, such as our April Fool's joke, which you can see on the side there with Tom Batsford, our gameplay programmer, who's going to be on stage with me later for the Q&A. So Fat Shark has been around since 2007, and we've made a bunch of different games. I thought we'd just briefly show you a reel of some of our earlier games to give you an idea of kind of where we're coming from. So here we go. So as you can see, we've made games of pretty much every genre you can imagine. We've tried out a lot of different things in our career, and we've come to a point now where we're working mostly on multiplayer games. We're an independent developer of about 50 people, and we are based in Stockholm, Sweden, which looks gorgeous 1 week a year, as you can see on that picture, when it's summer. The other times of the year, it snows, as you can see in this picture here, of our Christmas party back in 2012 when I joined the company. And if you look closely, you can see pretty much everyone is closing their eyes in this picture, which is a bit silly. This is us last year around the time of release. So as you can see, we've grown quite substantially, and that's let us make more ambitious games than ever before, but it's also brought a lot of problems in terms of communication. So we'll talk a little bit about what we've learned in growing the company. Our very first game was Letting Gold, and this was a third-person Western shooter, which really taught us about multiplayer. This was released back in 2010, and already then we started experimenting with more cooperative features, like having squads where you would have buffs if you were in that individual squad. And I think already there we started to have an idea that we wanted to make a co-op game down the line. Later we worked on the War franchise together with Paradox, which was War of the Roses and War of the Vikings, and this really set the stage for us in working on melee combat and getting melee to feel really good. But there was one game that we'd always really wanted to make as a company, and that was Vermintide. This is a picture of our CEO, Martin, on the far right. We've got Morten, our producer, and Anders, who is our creative director, who always looks outside of the camera shot, so that's kind of weird. And these guys are obsessed with Warhammer, seriously. Anders has won awards for painting armies. I know Morten paints armies every lunch break, and Martin is surrounded by boxes of Warhammer in the office. These guys love Warhammer, and we've always wanted to make a Warhammer game. So we started pitching a co-op game internally, and the general idea was we wanted to do a first-person co-op game with kind of shooting, range mechanics, and a melee combat in the dark fantasy of Warhammer. The End Times was something that sort of happened as we started producing the game, and we were incredibly fortunate to be involved in the End Times, because what better place to set a game that is all about co-op than the end of the world? That's just great. The original pitch to Games Workshop was done through this website at the customer support forum. So our creative director, Anders, asked our CEO, Martin, please can I contact Games Workshop about a Warhammer idea? He said, sure, go for it. They probably won't answer. But they did, and they turned out to be really awesome people. And they loved the idea of Vermintide, so we got into production. Project Bulldozer was the original name for Vermintide. I still don't know where that name came from, but Project Bulldozer. So when we were sitting on the subway talking about Vermintide, we were talking about Bulldozer and how that was going, and people looked at us strangely. We had a couple of original design pillars. These have changed a bit during the development, but our original idea was 3 core pillars. First of all, stay true to the IP. Stay true to Warhammer Dark Fantasy. Get that right, get the look right, get the setting. Everything needs to feel authentic Warhammer, because Vermintide is now canon part of Warhammer. We wanted a really cooperative game as well. We wanted a game not only where it was extremely fun to play with your friends, but very, very punishing if you don't play as a team. So it's all about kind of finding these fun co-op elements and how can we punish you for not playing as a team. Here at Res, we've been seeing a lot of teams where one person will run off ahead and they die and the other ones laugh, and it's great. Pacing was also a really big part of the game. We've been very inspired by games like Left 4 Dead and having a director-driven AI and having things kind of change between each session, so you don't quite know what's going to happen in a game, and then getting the kind of various enemies to spawn in different places just really feels good. Our original support pillars was a sense of progression, which has taken the place in kind of having a loot system, having different ways that you can like gather achievements and all this kind of stuff, and replayability was a big thing. We want people to be able to play Vermintide for as long as they like, and I've got a really good story about that in just a bit. So as I mentioned before, we grew a lot during the years before Vermintide, and there's about 50 of us all working on just one game. And that brings all sorts of interesting challenges together when it comes to communication within teams. So our general structure has been one where we've had feature teams working on a specific area. So maybe we have one team working on an enemy or a certain level, for example, or like various features. And so we have one big producer who, not like physically big, but a major producer who manages all these Scrum teams. And we have a Scrum Lord within each team that works with all the developers, the artists, the coders, the designers, to make sure that they know what they're going to deliver, when they need to deliver it, and follow up on things, make sure everyone is heard. A Scrum Lord could be somebody who is also just a developer. So in this case, I know Tom Batsford, who's going to be talking with us later, is a Scrum Lord for one team, and he might have had a team like this with a programmer, a designer, an artist, an animator, who all work together. We kind of shift things around a lot during development as well, so we try to be as flexible as we can. Back in February last year, we put out this little trailer, and that was the announcement for the game. And it actually did really well. People were super excited, and we haven't even shown any gameplay at that point. But we did show that it was the end times, and hopefully people were enjoying it. We pushed on towards a public beta, just to gather feedback and really stress test things. Actually, one guy rage quit our community because we didn't give him a beta invite within a week of him asking. So, don't know where he is now, but sorry. This brings us to our first funny story. So, as the beta progressed, we started getting a lot of reports of people logging in and seeing that they had the wrong gear. So people are saying, I have this axe that doesn't actually belong to me, or I logged in and I got all these achievements, or all my gear is just different. And we were really concerned about this, because that's not supposed to happen. As it turned out, there was an error in the game where if you couldn't fetch your profile, everybody would kind of be pointed to one and the same profile, which belonged to Nicholas, one of our gameplay programmers. So he had a lot of gear in his account all of a sudden, and that was kind of interesting. We fixed the bug, but in retrospect, I kind of like this feature idea of like one account that you can all share. Yeah, that's a cool idea, so maybe we should do that at some point. We continued to work throughout the beta on finalizing the game. We got a lot of great suggestions from the community, things that we added last minute. We fixed a bunch of bugs, we tweaked the balance, and so on. And then October came around, and this was everybody in the office, more or less. We did hit our release date, and at this point, I just want you to understand that we were 50 people, an independent developer. We were self-funding it, we were publishing ourselves. We were terrified, because if this game flopped, nobody was really talking about what that might result in, but I probably wouldn't be here today. I mean, I wouldn't be dead, probably, but you know. We released the game, and on the first week, we had about 25,000 concurrent players, nearly. We sold 300,000 copies within 2 weeks, which was crazy. And there was so much happiness at the office. There was an equal amount of chaos and people reading reviews going, we have to change this, and no, just chill out for a bit, and we'll patch it later. But most people really liked the game. And I took this shot just before coming here, and we have 84% positive reviews on Steam, which we're super proud of, and we really, we've been truly blessed by our community and our fans in liking this game, and we're super happy to still be working on it today. These kind of things, having sold that many copies and having the reception that we have really means that we can continue to support Vermintide for the foreseeable future, and that is awesome, because this is the game we want to make. As it looks right now, we have a Metacritic score of 79. We've still got the 84% on Steam. We've sold 500,000 copies, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago. And our average playtime for one user is 18.6 hours, which is quite a lot. So our most valuable lessons throughout the development of Vermintide: communication. If you are going to grow a company that much in that short amount of time, you have to communicate between the teams. We had a lot of issues early on in development where it wasn't always clear what we were working on, and we've been really trying to get better at that as we go along. And also communicating with our players. We've been working a lot more with kind of the community side of things lately, and I know Tom and myself do a live stream that we do for every major update, and every time we stream, people are asking us, could you do more streams? Could you do more stuff like this? Communicating with people. So that's something we're working on all the time. Having a clear vision and sticking to that vision has been a really valuable lesson for us as well. And if you can't play the game, it's kind of hard to know if you're going in the right direction. So stability is a priority. Which brings me to funny story number 2. So speaking about replayability and people playing for a long time, the game had been out for 1 month when we got a support ticket, which you can see at the bottom there, from a Korean player who told us that he had reached level 225 in the first month of playing. We looked at his Steam account, we're like, come on, he's obviously cheating or lying or something, but he'd played for a third of all available time since release. So that's on average 8 hours a day, including weekends, for 1 month. And his level had suddenly been reset from 225 to 1. I think he sent us about 20 support tickets within a couple of days, and rightfully so. He was, concerned. We managed to fix it. It took us a couple of days, and it turned out we had a bug in the level cap. So that's fixed now, and I am level 3,200 and something now, just to confirm that. People call me a cheater all the time. It's great. Since launch, we've been doing a bunch of more stuff with the game. We've released 2 free DLCs for the game. We've released 1 paid, and released 14 patches that fix various bugs, add some tiny features here and there, and we really want to continue doing that. The future for Vermintide as it looks right now is primarily a console version that about half of the studio is working on. So we have PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions coming out. We still don't have a release date for that, but we are really trying to take our time with it and make sure that we can get the best possible console versions. We don't just want to do like a quick port. We want the game to make sense on consoles, get the control scheme right, make sure that everything is as tight as it can be. So as soon as we know that we can commit to a release date, we'll announce that. And we've got 2 new DLCs coming out next month. One of them is going to be free, and one of them is going to be paid. And May is going to be the biggest month for Vermintide so far. These updates are going to substantially change the game, change the way that you play the game, and add some really cool new stuff. And I'm happy to announce that the free one is a quest system that we call Quests and Contracts. So these are 2 examples of contracts that you'll be able to get in the game. What we're doing is we're going to be giving contracts and quests on a daily basis. You can get these every single day. It's kind of a daily quest system. And these will give you a specific objective that you need to complete with a specific reward that you'll get for doing so. So in these 2 examples, and let me just point out, these are placeholders. Everything about this might change at some point. But in the example on the left, you've got a contract which says, if you complete the Horn of Magnus, Supply and Demand, or the Enemy Below on at least the hard difficulty and collect 1 Grimoire, you'll receive a brand new reward type, which is a boon. So a boon is kind of a timed buff that's going to boost you in some way. In this case, it is a reduced received damage boon. It's going to last for 2 hours. It's going to mean you take less damage from being hit by enemies. So getting one of those is going to mean that you can take on higher difficulties. It is a really good way for you to, for example, progress further in Last Stand than you've ever done before. And it's a really cool new system that we can play around with and give players temporary buffs. In the second example, you need to kill 1 Rat Ogre on the Enemy Below or Wizard's Tower on Cataclysm. That's going to give you 50 white tokens, which is a bit cheap, to be honest. We might buff that. We've got a couple of different goals with custom contracts. First of all, we want to create incentives to play various levels. I don't know, those of you who played the game, how many times have you played the Horn of Magnus? Probably a lot of times, if you like grinding for loot like I do. We really want to create more reasons for you to try the various levels out, and what we can do with this contract and quest system is effectively control the types of maps that you'll get. So we might do like a weekly rotation of, say, these 5 maps. That's something that we can experiment with, and really make sure that you're getting something cool for trying something new. We're trying to reinvent the loot system. We want it to be super clear what you're getting for what effort, and this is added on top of the existing loot system. So you can still play the game, you can still get loot. As a matter of fact, quests and contracts are just going to give you even more loot for doing specific things. And in this example here on the picture, you can see this is an item that you'll get, these are the traits that are going to be on it. It's super transparent, and it's super clear what you're going to be getting for doing what. We've got more details on quests and contracts coming soon, and our other pay DLC, which I'm super excited to talk about. Unfortunately, I couldn't convince our marketing team that we could talk about it today, but soon. And you're going to love it. Seriously. All right, that's all from me. And now we're happy to take some questions. Tom's going to join me in just a bit and give us some really tricky questions. We'd love to answer them. Thank you.
If everyone wants to start forming a line by the mic, so not everyone's coming up one by one, that would be very helpful, thank you. Please, Tom. While we're getting our queue going, I may as well kick things off, and I'll take a bullet and ask you probably the most boring question you're going to get. With boons and the timed, say it was 2 hours reduced damage, does that count for just the next 2 hours in real-world time, or your next 2 hours of gameplay?
Sorry. So it's the next 2 hours in real life. Yeah. And what you can do is you can save your contracts up. Once you beat them, you can hand them in to start them all when you want to start them, but you have to choose when to start it, and that's going to be real time. And that's part of the reason why we do that is for kind of anti-cheat concerns as well, because you have to check against our server and just, yeah.
And we always like it when people want to keep playing the game, but then perhaps don't have a reason to, and then you complete a contract and you get this boon, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll play for another hour or so just to get the most out of it. We have a lot of exciting ideas for boons as well, so hopefully when they come out, I don't know how many we're going to be adding to the game. It's around 5 or 6, I think, when we release the system, and then we'll continuously add more and more. So if you have any cool ideas, I guess put them on the forums and we'll see what we can do. Yeah,
I think my favorite one right now is one that, when you hit someone with a two-handed hammer and they fly away, they're going to fly even further now. Yeah. They're going to fly as far as if they got hit by a grenade, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. It's great. It's just fun.
Okay.
Questions? Has anyone got any? You can ask us really tricky lore questions as well, and we can...
You announced the console versions. Are you looking at crossplay?
At crossplay for the consoles?
Consoles and PC.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that. It was exciting in the office. I know there was excitement in the office at least when Microsoft announced that they were going to allow network play between PS4 and Xbox One. Whether we'll be able to add that before the consoles are released, I don't know, but I'm sure it's something that we could definitely look at. Right now, though, I don't think we are.
Yeah, right now it's much. What we're trying to focus on now is getting the optimization right, getting the frame rate stable and all that kind of stuff, and make sure that controls feel right. But I think even if that's a feature we don't manage to get in for the release of the console versions, it's definitely something we might look at for the future.
Yeah.
So because it's a really cool idea, definitely.
And how are you looking to expand the game? Are you looking at expansion packs, sequel?
Without getting into too many details, we're adding more enemies, more items, more levels, all sorts of stuff, and we are. Sorry?
More classes?
That's very possible for the future. That's the best answer I can give without getting fired, unfortunately.
Probably.
And do you have any plans for local play?
For local play?
Yeah.
Not currently, I don't think. I think we are sticking to online just because it's obviously people do cheat the game, which is one of our concerns, and we're looking at that at the minute. But if we can add any layers that stop that, then it's great, and always being online is one of them. We could, I guess, add a local version, but it would be, I don't know, I think it would be a lot of work, and you can't guarantee that then if people are playing offline and then come online, that they've got their gear legitimately, and we want people to play as legitimately as possible. So.
Yeah, and then one thing that's interesting for us as well is when people play online, it means we can gather data and basically balance the game around what we see and make it even better. So, but it is a lot of work to do local play, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I was wondering if you'd be doing anything more about the characters' backstories, because they're quite you get a bit of a good insight from what's written so far, but you get bits of their stories from when they interact with each other, and I thought, would there be, any sort of more revealing of their storylines and their dialogue with each other, like what Bardin's looking for, what happened to Saltspire's eye, why Carillion is walking in the realm of man?
What is Bardin looking for?
I'm not sure.
Let's not spoil it. There is definitely plans to expand on the backstories and to... I really want to announce something now, but I shouldn't.
No.
we're going to be doing cool stuff. Let's put it that way.
And I think every time we add, like the voiceovers that we're adding to the game is a constant thing that we're working with. So obviously the voice actors that we have for each character don't work for us, so we just do it in chunks. And I think the goal is to, almost with every DLC that we add, to hopefully add more voice lines at least and interactions between the characters. So that should give you more insight into the lore behind them.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you was talking about local play being an issue, but one of the best things about Left 4 Dead was being able to do couch co-op. So have you thought about implementing couch co-op, even just keeping it online, but having couch co-op for PC?
That would be really cool. I think one of the kind of technical issues with our optimization is that we put a lot of enemies on screen at once. It's very taxing for the CPU. So I think it's going to come down to just, can we do it without it being at a frame rate of 4, basically. If we can do it, I'd love to, and I know it's been something that we have a lot of passionate people in the office that really want to do it, and we'll see if we end up doing it or not. I hope so, personally.
I hope so also.
So, will there be some cool cinematics?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
I think we'll have to pass
I
on that
hope
one.
so. I hope so.
We hope so.
Yeah, because I loved the cinematic that we released when we released the game. It's so good. So I'd love to see more of that, but I'm not sure at the minute, I'm afraid.
I can say that the guys who made that trailer, like the original release trailer and the intro, their office is down the street from ours. So we know them very closely, and we meet them all the time.
Yeah,
and
we
I know
work with
they're
them
excited to do
occasionally.
it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to do it.
Thanks.
So that was a really bad answer, sorry.
So my question is about enemies, and if you're going to be adding any additional ones into the game outside of the Skaven race. Obviously it's called Vermintide and that is the focus, but there is a heavy chaos element behind the Warpstone, etc.
Yeah, and I think the whole of the end times is like a huge thing that we can explore. There's a lot of different races, and the whole Nagash and all the Chaos Gods and all that kind of stuff would be such a cool thing to explore. But at the minute, we're focusing on the Skaven. So hopefully we'll be adding more Skaven to the game at some point, and then in the future, if we continue into more of the end time story, we might be able to see something else.
I will say that our producer was asked this around the time of release, and he said there was a more than 50% chance of us adding more races.
Yes.
I'd say that has gone up since then.
Yes.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hiya.
Hi.
It's kind of personal question, but the way that I'm playing Vermintide at the moment, I'm kind of stuck in this sort of limbo between being a bit, finding Nightmare a bit too easy and Cataclysm too difficult, and from what I see on forums, that's sort of quite a common thing for a lot of players.
Yeah.
So have you sort of thought about how you're sort of going to balance difficulty in the future, whether with the sort of, new contracts you'll be able to sort of tweak the difficulty more?
Well, I think our hope is that the boons will bridge that gap. There are boons, for example, that increase your damage and reduce your damage taken, as 2 examples. And I think that's a great opportunity for someone that is normally a Nightmare player to then jump into Cataclysm whilst they've got those on and hopefully have a better experience in those difficulties. I know that when we added Cataclysm, we wanted it to be there for... no one at the office thought that anyone would be able to do it. So then, obviously...
And then we doubled it.
Yeah. Then players proved us wrong within a week.
Yeah.
So... it's definitely something that we could take a look at. I know that the balancing of difficulties is an ongoing thing, especially from our experience here at Rezzed. We've only been really running the game on easy, and new players struggle on some levels more than others. So I think it would be nice to do a difficulty pass on the levels or something, just to try and get them more similar to each other. Because we've got levels like Black Powder, which on easy are even quite difficult, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And then you've got more easier levels, I guess, on Smuggler's Run and that. So I'd say hopefully we'll be doing some rebalancing of the difficulties just to make it a bit more of a fluid progression.
Yeah, but I definitely think if you're excited about trying out Cataclysm more, May is the month for you to get your boons and just get that achievement for all Cataclysm levels.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Hi guys.
Hello.
I was just wondering, is it, when designing the characters in the world that you made in the game, was it hard to stay true to the Warhammer lore whilst implementing your own your artistic creativity in the game as well?
Honestly, no. because there's so much inspiration and so many things we can do. I think it has been more tricky for us not to do too many things. I know originally we were planning to have like lots more heroes and all that kind of stuff, and the real tricky part has just been like, how do we actually reach the level of quality with everything we do that we want? There's so much that you can do in the Warhammer world, so many like exciting heroes to choose, so many races we can work with, and there's magic. There's so much you can do. I think, no, I can't even remember a single moment where we've had to go like, no, we can't do this because Warhammer. It's been the other way around.
It has been constraining in some regards. I know, like, we had close to pre-production, we were talking about having magical items that all the characters could use, but then the three guys that you saw in the presentation, the big Warhammer guys, were like, yeah, Witch Hunter would never use magic. Why would you ever give him the possibility of using magic? So there's constraints in that regard, and also a lot of things that we do have to go through Games Workshop to make sure that it's true to the law. So as long as it's going through them and they're approving everything, then everything should be like on point in the law.
A lot of the time they've been happy to be flexible as well with things, actually.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point, hopefully, where they're going to start allowing us to add our own things to the Warhammer law, but we'll see.
Easy.
We'll see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you release it on console, will all the free DLC be coming with it?
Yes.
Yes.
All of it all at the same time?
Yes.
When Diablo came out, it was very, very, very far behind that of PC. Are you guys going to be keeping it up to date as well?
I think that's our intent.
Yeah, I mean, releasing updates to consoles is trickier than for PC, and so I think we'll just have to find whatever's reasonable for us to do. My hope is that we can keep them as close together as possible, but there is a kind of submission process and stuff like that you have to do for consoles, so there's a longer turnaround, and whether or not we're going to force PC players to wait for that is something we all have to discuss. But for the release, they'll definitely be up to date to all the free DLCs that you've seen for the PC version.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
So yeah, I think that about wraps it up. There's nothing really left for me to do other than to thank you all for tuning in and ask you to give another one round of applause, please, for Liam and Tom. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming. Cheers.
You can see the biggest developers live and play a huge range of unreleased games at EGX 2016 in Birmingham from the 22nd to the 25th of September. The UK's biggest games event is going even bigger this year, with more space and more screens to make it our best ever. Play this year's hits first, see developers live, and check out the spectacular cosplay stage, gigantic retro selection, plus sessions and talks on getting into the games industry.